The goal of sharpening is to produce images with crisp, clearly defined edge details without introducing distracting noise or artifacts to other areas of your image. There are three basic types of sharpening: process sharpening, cosmetic sharpening, and output sharpening. In this video, let's look at the sharpening options offered in the Develop module, which are mostly related to process and cosmetic sharpening. Output sharpening options are found in the Print module and in the Export dialog window. So image sharpening is really just an exaggeration of contrast along the edges, places where light and dark pixels meet. Now our controls are found over here in the right panel in the Detail pane. The Amount slider, shown here, that controls the intensity of the edge contrast. I'll go ahead and just crank that all the way up so you can see. And then I'll double click on the arrow, bring it back down to its default. And the radius, it controls how wide the edge is. Watch this. Okay. And bring that back down. And then the detail, that determines exactly what is an edge. Masking controls where the first sliders occur. Now you may not have been able to see the effect of me moving those sliders very well, so let me show you something else that will make it a little bit more apparent. I'm going to go ahead and hold down the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to click on the radius now. Now when I move this slider to the right, you can really get a better sense of what I was talking about when I talked about the radius controlling how wide the edge is. So let me bring that back to its default. And I'm going to do the same thing with the Detail slider. I'm holding the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to slide that over. And you can see how that makes it a lot easier to see how that slider is affecting the image. For masking, if I hold down the Option Alt key and slide it, you can see the dark areas. As I get the black areas, are areas where the sliders from above are not affecting that area. So in a sense, that's the mask, and we've now isolated the effect to where I want it to be, in this case the edge of the eye, and not the skin, because by over-sharpening the skin or any of the continuous tone areas, you'll create artifacts and it'll look blotchy and unnatural. So now I can move these sliders up above and just work on that area, the eye area, the edges. I'll go back down again and hold the Option Alt, and you can see that's the area I'm working on there, the light areas. So I can tweak that, get that just about right. Okay. Now this is affecting the whole image. I'm working globally. So anywhere in the image where there's edge detail, we're getting some sharpening. And now let me hold down the Option Alt on the masking. You can see it's holding the skin area here. It's holding back on that and just applying the sharpening in that case here. Now you'll notice I'm viewing this at 1:1. You really need to be at least 1:1 to view the effect of sharpening. You can come over here. You see how I clicked on that little triangle there? I can now go back down to a fit mode and still work on a detail mode here in this window if I want to, and I can move around. I can move anywhere I want within this window by clicking on this little box here, and now these are tied together. So my cursor, you see as I move my cursor around on the full image, the magnified view shows up in the little box there, and I'll go up to the hat so you can see the details there. So this is just another way of seeing the effect of the detail sliders without having to go to the 1:1 view, where you need to go if you want to really see the effects of sharpening clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and decouple those so they're not joined and close this window. Go back up to 1:1 so I can see it there in the preview area. I want to show you one other thing. When you hold down the Option or Alt, you notice how this sharpening now turns to reset sharpening. This is a way of getting back to the default settings. If it's a raw image, your default setting for amount will be 25, radius 10, detail 25, and masking will be turned off. Don't be misled by this number 25 here. That is really It's not saying it's going to apply 25, the value 25 to all images the same. There's a lot of things going on underneath the hood where Lightroom is determining what the right amount of sharpening will be for your particular raw file. And that number is really a relative number. In general, Lightroom does a pretty darn good job of sharpening this general, what I call process sharpening. And process sharpening is really just bringing the image up to where it should be, how the image should be to begin with. And then you can go beyond that with the cosmetic sharpening, which is really more localized sharpening. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then finally, the output sharpening, which is the last stage in any kind of sharpening strategy. And that's based on the destination. For example, if you're going to print, the amount of sharpening you're going to apply is going to be different than, say, if you go to the monitor or a screen. And within the prints themselves, there's going to be so many parameters there that you're going to have to decide, for example, what kind of printer you're using, what kind of paper, what kind of ink. And a lot of that's we covered in the print module, because that Lightroom also will handle print sharpening. And then in the export dialog, there's also ways of applying sharpening. But let's go very quickly over the final aspect of sharpening in the develop module, and that is the cosmetic sharpening. As I mentioned, what we're doing here in the detail pane is global, so we're applying that to the entire image. But what if you just want to go in and say sharpen just the eye right here? This is where the adjustment brush comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and select the adjustment brush, and you can see there's already a preset right here, sharpness. So this is the sharpness slider that has been moved slightly over. You can apply more sharpening if you want. This is set at 25. I'm going to set it higher so you can see the effects a little bit better. And then you just use the adjustment brush like you use the adjustment brush for anything. You just click and go ahead and paint the sharpening exactly where you want it to go, which I've just done there. And I can always go back and control it, bring it back down. I can make it very soft if I want, but that's not what I want in this case. So right now the sharpness value is at 100. You can actually layer these effects. So I've used one pin, applied 100, the 100 value to it. I can now choose another pin, another mask, and I can apply another round of sharpening. So I'm building on top of that sharpening. It's going a little too far because now we're starting to get those artifacts that I was talking about. And it's not looking very natural. So I've gone too far, but I just wanted to show you that you can use the sharpening slider there to apply localized sharpening, and you can also layer those effects. So in other words, you can build the sharpening much more than it seems at first.